Good evening. Thanks for joining us. Tonight, a push by lawmakers in Florida to end its vaccination requirement for school-age students is sparking debate across the country.
Here in Wisconsin, where measles cases are spreading, one Fox Valley doctor warns this decision could have real consequences for families right in our own state. In a First Alert update, Samantha Cavalli is live in the Fox Valley newsroom to share why that doctor is sounding the alarm to parents. Samantha.
Right, Cami. Dr. Julianne Falleroni fears that Florida's push to end the vaccine requirements for students could have ripple effects far beyond the state lines. And with highly contagious diseases like measles, she says dropping mandates in one state puts families everywhere at risk.
A move in Florida raising questions nationwide about public health as the state looks to end its vaccine requirement for students.
I think in general, it does kind of make those of us in the medical field anxious to think about.
Family physician Dr. Julianne Falleroni calling the idea troubling, especially as cases of measles climb in Oconto County. This chart from the Wisconsin Department of Health shows 24 measles cases, 13 of them school-aged children, none of which are vaccinated.
These vaccines and these viruses, they don't really follow state lines or community lines or things like that. And once you have enough people in a community that aren't vaccinated, then it can just rampantly run through that community and then spread outside of that community pretty quickly.
Right now, all 50 states have some form of school vaccine requirement, but Wisconsin Senator Tammy Baldwin says decisions like these shouldn't be left up to individual states. She says vaccine policy needs to be based on science with federal oversight, since states don't have the same research capacity as the FDA.
It should not be a matter of state-by-state decisions when they don't have the infrastructure, the scientific research going on. That's a federal responsibility.
Dr. Falleroni agrees, saying immunity is critical, especially for those who can't be vaccinated.
They rely on the immunity of the people around them who can, and so I think that that's where that does make clinicians and people in the health world a little anxious that that's going to get worse.
And like we mentioned, those 50 states, they have some form of a school vaccine requirement, but Wisconsin does allow parents to adopt out of vaccines. But Dr. Falleroni says that the more people that are immunized, the safer communities are. The DHS is set to release updated numbers regarding the measles cases in the state tomorrow. Reporting in the Fox Valley newsroom, Samantha Cavalli, Action 2 News.